Beyond the railway tracks of a quiet town stretched an abandoned tunnel, carved through the mountain long ago. No trains passed anymore, but villagers warned never to enter after dark. They said voices echoed inside, not your own, but the voices of those you loved most, begging you to follow. And those who did never came out. Two best friends, Adil and Samar, grew up daring each other into every haunted spot. Adil, reckless and fearless, wanted proof. Samar, careful but devoted, always followed to keep him safe. One evening, beneath a sky heavy with storm clouds, Adil whispered, "Let's go through the tunnel tonight. If we hear voices, we'll prove once and for all if the curse is true." Samar's throat tightened. "And if we don't come back?" Adil grinned. "Then at least we'll vanish side by side." At midnight, they stepped into the tunnel with a single lantern. The air was damp, dripping with the sound of water. Their footsteps echoed against the stone walls. Halfway through, the lantern flickered, and the voices began. "Adil." It was Samar's voice, but not from beside him. It came from deeper in the tunnel, soft, desperate. "Help me." Samar heard his own voice calling from behind, far away, as if trapped. Both froze, chills racing down their spines. Then dozens of voices filled the tunnel, children, parents, strangers, all crying, all pleading. "Come to me, save me, leave him, choose one." Shadows peeled from the walls, stretching into tall, twisted figures. The lantern dimmed and the ground trembled. A hollow voice boomed, "One must follow the voices, one may go free. The tunnel keeps balance. Choose." Adil clenched his fists. "Take me, let Samar go." But Samar shoved him back. "No, if you go, I go. We're not splitting." The shadows closed in, whispering faster. "He will leave you one day. He will betray. Choose before dawn." Adil's voice shook. "Even if he betrays me someday, I'd rather be lost with him than safe without him." Samar gripped his hand tight. "We walk this darkness together, always." The tunnel roared, the walls shaking. The shadows shrieked and dissolved into smoke. The voices screamed, then silenced. Their lantern blazed suddenly bright, lighting the entire tunnel. When they stumbled out the far side, dawn was breaking. Behind them, the tunnel cracked, stones collapsing until the entrance sealed shut forever. The villagers, hearing of it, were astonished. The tunnel fed on doubt and betrayal, the elders said. But loyalty broke its hunger. From then on, people no longer feared the railway tracks. The cursed tunnel was gone, but its lesson remained. Parents told their children, "Beware voices that try to divide you. True friends walk through the darkness, hand in hand, until they reach the light." And sometimes, on stormy nights, those walking near the mountain swore they heard faint laughter carried on the wind. Two friends who refused to choose, echoing forever as proof that loyalty can silence even the darkest voices. In the middle of a bustling city, tucked behind tall concrete walls, there was an abandoned mansion people rarely noticed. The gates were rusted, the windows shuttered. Most assumed it was empty. But two friends, Mira and Kavya, curious and adventurous, discovered something no one else had. One afternoon after school, chasing a stray ball, they stumbled into a gap in the wall and found themselves in a sprawling garden hidden behind the mansion. It wasn't overgrown or dead. It was alive. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors. Vines glowed faintly as if painted with starlight, and a fountain bubbled with water so clear it sparkled like glass. "It's like stepping into another world," Kavya whispered, wide-eyed. At the center stood a marble pedestal with an inscription. "One wish each. Speak truly, or the garden fades." Mira's eyes widened. "A wishing garden." Kavya, ever cautious, frowned. "Maybe it's just a trick, but what if it's real?" They sat under a glowing tree, thinking. Many would have wished for riches, fame, or power, but Mira finally whispered, "I wish to always have courage, even when I'm afraid." The fountain rippled, glowing brighter. Kavya smiled softly. "Then I wish to always have kindness, even when I'm angry." The garden shimmered. The flowers bloomed even brighter, vines stretching upward, birds swooping in with songs that filled the air. From that day, strange but wonderful things began to happen. Whenever Mira faced something frightening, whether standing up to bullies, speaking on stage, or trying something new, she felt a warmth in her chest, as if the garden whispered, "Be brave." And when Kavya felt her temper flare, about to say something sharp, the same warmth soothed her heart, reminding her to choose gentleness. The friends often returned to the garden, not for more wishes. It allowed only one each, but to sit beneath its glowing trees, read stories aloud, and share dreams. They promised never to tell anyone else, afraid greed would ruin the magic. Years passed. Mira became a rescue worker, running into danger when others ran away. Kavya became a teacher, calming restless classrooms with patience. Both carried the garden's gift within them, though no one else knew why they shone in their own ways. One day, long after the mansion was finally torn down, the two women returned to the site together. The garden had vanished with the walls. In its place stood a community park, filled with laughing children and blooming flowers. Mira smiled. "Do you think the garden's magic is gone?" Kavya shook her head. "No, I think it gave us enough to plant our own." And as they sat on a park bench, watching children play, they realized the truth. The hidden garden hadn't been about granting endless wishes. It had been about planting courage and kindness into two hearts that would carry it into the world. From then on, whenever people saw Mira and Kavya, still side by side after all the years, they felt lighter, as if, without knowing it, they too had walked through a hidden garden. At the far edge of a village stood a massive peepal tree, older than the oldest elder. Its trunk was wide as a house, and strange carvings covered its bark, marks like letters, though no one knew who had carved them. The villagers said the tree counted the names of those who betrayed their closest friends. At night, if it whispered your name, you would vanish before dawn. Two best friends, Harsh and Milan, grew up beneath that tree. They'd played hide-and-seek around its roots, carved their initials into its bark, even promised under its shade. "No matter what, we never betray." But as they grew older, the tree's whispers grew louder at night. Villagers swore they heard names called, followed by footsteps disappearing into the dark. One evening, Harsh turned to Milan with his daring grin. "Let's test it. If the tree really calls names, we'll hear it ourselves." Milan shivered. "And if it calls ours?" Harsh's eyes gleamed. "Then we stand together. Always." At midnight, they sat beneath the sprawling branches. The air was heavy, as though the tree itself was holding its breath. At first there was silence. Then the wind stirred, and from deep within the bark came a whisper. "Harsh." The name slithered through the dark. Milan stiffened. "It called you." The tree whispered again, "Milan." Their blood ran cold. Roots stirred at their feet, coiling like snakes. The carvings on the trunk began to glow faintly, forming new letters, their names. A hollow voice rumbled from the tree. "One must betray, or both must be claimed." Harsh clenched his fists. "Then take me. Spare Milan." Milan grabbed his arm, eyes fierce. "No, if you take him, you take me. We don't choose." The tree hissed, its roots tightening around their ankles. The ground trembled as whispers rose louder, echoing thousands of names. Shadows formed in the branches, faces of those who had been taken before, their mouths open in endless screams. The bark glowed brighter, pressing their names deeper. The voice roared, "Betrayal feeds me. Loyalty starves me. Choose." But the boys held each other's hands, shouting into the storm of whispers, "We choose each other. We don't betray." The tree shrieked. Its carvings flared white, then split apart with a deafening crack. Roots recoiled, snapping back into the soil. The glowing letters crumbled to ash, their names erased. When the storm of whispers died, the tree stood silent for the first time in centuries. By dawn, the villagers gathered in awe. The carvings that had covered the trunk for generations were gone. Smooth bark remained, as though the tree had been cleansed. From that day on, the tree that counted names no longer whispered. It became a place of shade, peace, and stories. Children played beneath it, unafraid, while elders told the tale of Harsh and Milan, the friends who broke the curse not with strength, but with loyalty unshaken. and the villagers carried a new saying: "A friend who never betrays is stronger than the oldest curse." On the far edge of a seaside village stood a tall, crumbling watchtower. Once it had guarded against pirates, but now it stood hollow and gray, its stones blackened by storms. The villagers said that on moonless nights, firelight glowed at its top, and anyone who climbed it after dark never returned. Two friends, Arush and Kitten, had heard the tale since childhood. Arush, always bold, scoffed at the warnings. Kitten, cautious but loyal, worried but never let Arush wander alone. One night, when the sea was wild and the sky starless, Arush nudged him. "Let's climb the tower tonight. If we come back, the curse is broken." Kitten hesitated. "And if we don't?" Arush grinned. "Then at least we vanish together." They crept through the howling wind and entered the tower. The stairs spiraled upward, damp and cracked, echoing with every step. Halfway up, they noticed faint light above, flickering red like embers. At the top, the room glowed with a fire that burned without wood. Around it stood shadows, figures of sailors and guards from centuries past, their eyes hollow, their armor ash. They turned as one, their voices a single hiss. "One may descend, one must remain. The tower feeds on keepers." The fire flared and a rope of smoke lashed out, coiling around Arush's arm, dragging him toward the flames. Kitten lunged, grabbing him back. "I won't let go!" The shadows moved closer, whispering, "Betrayal is easy, loyalty is heavy. Choose before dawn." The tower trembled, stones falling loose, the sea roaring louder outside. Arush gritted his teeth. "If it needs one keeper, take me. Let Kitten go." But Kitten pulled him back, shouting, "No! If you burn, I burn. We don't break apart." Together they braced against the smoke, holding on to each other. "We choose neither!" they shouted into the fire. The shadows screamed. The flames roared higher, then collapsed into sparks that died in the air. The smoke rope snapped, vanishing. The watchtower stilled. Only the sound of waves below remained. The shadows dissolved, leaving behind nothing but ash. By dawn, when the boys staggered down, the top of the tower had crumbled, its fire gone forever. The villagers saw the ruin and understood. The curse was broken. From then on, the tower was no longer feared. Fishermen used it as a lookout, children climbed its base to watch the horizon, and the tale of Arush and Kitten spread across villages by the sea. Two friends who faced the fire and proved that loyalty could silence even centuries of hunger. Elders told the children, "The tower burned keepers because it fed on betrayal. But when two refused to let go, the fire turned to ash. And even now, when the sea is restless and the night is dark, villagers claim you can hear faint laughter from the ruins. Two voices, still standing guard together, stronger than any curse." Every year, the village of Shantipur celebrated its grandest festival, when the night sky blazed with fireworks and the streets glowed with rows upon rows of clay lamps. It was said that whoever lit the final lamp at the temple as highest step would have their deepest wish come true. Two best friends, Arohi and Nisha, had grown up dreaming about that moment. Arohi was lively and bold, the one who always rushed into things. Nisha was thoughtful, careful with her steps, but her quiet strength balanced Arohi's fire. One festival night, as music rang through the streets and sweets filled the air with their fragrance, the girls joined the crowd carrying lamps. Each family lit their own and placed it along the temple stairs. By the end of the night, only one lamp remained, the highest, waiting on the last step. The priest lifted it reverently. "One may place this lamp, and the gods will hear their wish, but only one." The crowd murmured. Everyone looked at Arohi and Nisha, who had always been known as inseparable. Surely they would want this chance. Arohi's eyes sparkled. "Go on, Nisha. Take it." Nisha shook her head. "No, you do it. You've wanted this since we were children." They stood frozen, each pushing the chance toward the other. The crowd whispered, waiting. Finally, Arohi laughed. "If we both can't do it, then let's wish together." She took Nisha's hand, and together they carried the lamp up the long staircase. With every step, the flame flickered but held steady, as though protected by their joined hands. At the top, instead of one person placing it, they set it down together, side by side. The flame leapt high, brighter than any other. The priest gasped. "The gods have accepted both your wishes." But Arohi and Nisha smiled at each other. Neither had spoken their wishes aloud, because they were the same. To never lose the bond between them. That night, the festival seemed more radiant than ever. The temple steps glowed with thousands of lamps, but everyone spoke of the last one, the lamp that shone brighter because two friends carried it together. Years passed, and the girls grew into women. They faced hardships, family struggles, jobs, heartbreaks, but every year, at the festival, they lit a single lamp together, laughing as if they were still children, and the bond they carried became a legend itself. Parents told their children, "The brightest lamp is not the one placed alone, but the one carried in friendship." And so, the Festival of 1,000 Lamps was remembered not just for its beauty, but for its lesson. Wishes shine brightest when shared. In a quiet town by the river, there was an old curiosity shop that sold odd things: rusty keys, broken watches, faded letters in jars. Tucked in one dusty corner sat a small wooden music box. Its carvings were delicate, swirling like vines, and a note beside it read, "Plays only for two friends who make a promise." Two best friends, Arya and Kabir, wandered into the shop one afternoon. Arya loved music, always humming tunes as she walked. Kabir loved puzzles, never passing by anything mysterious. Naturally, the music box caught their eye. "Do you think it works?" Arya asked. Kabir grinned. "Only one way to find out." They wound the key, but nothing happened, just silence. The shopkeeper, an old woman with sharp eyes, chuckled softly. "It doesn't play for curiosity, it plays for honesty." The two exchanged glances. Then Arya said, "Let's promise something real, something important." Kabir thought for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Let's promise that no matter where life takes us, we'll always show up for each other, even if it's just one day in the year." Arya smiled, her eyes shining. "Deal." The moment they shook hands, the box clicked open. A soft melody spilled into the air, warm and haunting, as though the wood itself remembered every promise ever made. The sound wrapped around them like sunlight. From that day forward, the music box became their secret ritual. Whenever life grew heavy, exams, fights at home, fears about the future, they met, wound the box, and reminded themselves of their promise. The melody never failed to play. Years passed. Arya went on to become a singer, traveling far, chasing stages and lights. Kabir stayed in the town, opening a small repair shop where he fixed broken clocks and radios. Distance stretched between them, but each year, no matter what, they returned to the little town, to the little shop, and to the little music box. One year, after a particularly long gap, Arya came rushing back, afraid the promise had grown thin. Kabir was already there, music box in hand, waiting. He smiled. "I knew you'd come." When they wound it together, the melody was stronger than ever, clearer, brighter, as though it too had waited faithfully. The shopkeeper was gone, the shop nearly forgotten, but the music box endured. It had become theirs, a keeper of loyalty. And the story spread quietly among the town's children. Two friends once found a box that only played for promises kept. Its music was not in the wood or the gears, but in their hearts. Whenever the melody floated through the town, people would say, "Listen closely. That's the sound of a promise that distance, time, and life itself could not break." High above a small town stood a mountain with two narrow trails. The villagers said that once you chose a path, you could never return. The mountain would close it behind you. Many travelers had gone up, but only a few ever came down, and always alone. People whispered, "The mountain tests friendship. Only truth survives its stones." Two inseparable friends, Neil and Arvind, often dreamed of climbing it. Neil, adventurous and quick to laugh, wanted to prove the legends wrong. Arvind, steady and thoughtful, feared the warnings but could never deny Neil. One clear morning, they set out together, carrying only water, bread, and each other's trust. The forest at the base was quiet, the air heavy as though the mountain itself was listening. Soon they reached a fork. Two trails stretched ahead, one to the left, filled with blooming flowers and sunlight, the other to the right, rocky and dark. A stone marker stood between them with words carved deep. One must walk one path. One must walk the other. Reunite or be lost forever. Neil frowned. It wants to split us. Arvind clenched his fists. No, we stay together. But the ground trembled, and the stone behind them sealed the way back. They had no choice. Neil grinned despite the fear in his eyes. Then we'll take separate trails, but meet at the top. Promise? Arvind nodded, though his heart was heavy. Promise. They parted, calling each other's names as long as their voices carried. On his sunny trail, Neil found comfort and ease, fruit trees, birdsong, soft wind. But his joy dimmed without Arvind beside him. On his rocky path, Arvind stumbled over thorns and stones, scraped knees and palms raw. Shadows pressed close, whispering doubts. He left you. He chose comfort. He will never wait for you. But Arvind shook his head, whispering back, He's my friend. He'll be there. Hours passed until both trails twisted upward to a plateau near the summit. Neil arrived first, his clothes clean, his body unscarred. He waited, pacing, fear gnawing. Would Arvind ever come? At last, through the shadows, Arvind appeared, battered, bleeding, but standing tall. Neil rushed forward, eyes wide. You made it! Arvind smiled weakly. I told you, I'd keep the promise. As they clasped hands, the mountain rumbled, but not in anger. The two trails behind them dissolved into stone, merging into one. A voice rolled across the sky like thunder. Friendship is not about walking the same path. It is about arriving together. At the summit, they found no treasure, no shrine, only a breathtaking view of their town below, bathed in golden light. But they understood. The mountain itself was the gift. It had given them proof that trust could carve one path from two. When they returned, the villagers listened in awe. From then on, the mountain was no longer feared, but honored as the mountain of two paths. And the story of Neil and Arvind was told for generations. Two friends who proved that even when the world tried to divide them, their bond created its own way forward. Every summer, when the rains filled the river until it overflowed into the fields, children from the village would gather at the banks with paper boats. Some folded them plain, others decorated them with colors, but all of them carried secret wishes written inside. The belief was simple. If the river accepted your boat, your wish would one day come true. Among the children were two best friends, Anjali and Ritu. They had been folding boats together since they were little. Anjali RS boats were always messy, but filled with wild wishes. I want to climb the tallest mountain. I want to fly in the sky. Ritu's boats were neat, folded with patience, and her wishes were gentler. I want to keep my family safe. I want to study and teach children. One summer, as teenagers, they returned to the riverbank with their boats. The crowd of children cheered and laughed as they sent their little fleets sailing. But when Anjali placed her boat on the water, it tipped over, sinking almost immediately. Her face fell. The river doesn't want my wishes. Ritu placed her neat boat carefully, and it floated straight and strong. She looked back at her friend, then quickly plucked it out of the water before it drifted away. Then the river doesn't get either of us. Anjali frowned. But why? Yours worked. Ritu smiled. Because what is the point of my wish if you think yours aren't good enough? We'll try again, together. So they both knelt down, folding another boat, this time using the same piece of paper. Ritu wrote her gentle wish, Anjali scribbled her wild dream, and they laughed as the paper tore a little in the middle but still held. When they placed that boat on the water, it rocked uncertainly, but then steadied, floating further than either of their single boats had ever gone. The river carried it far out of sight. Years passed. Anjali did travel. She trekked mountains, worked in faraway cities, chased adventures she had always dreamed of. Ritu became a beloved teacher in the village, guiding children with patience and warmth. But through letters, visits, and festivals, they never drifted apart. Every monsoon, no matter where Anjali was, she returned to the riverbank. And every year, she and Ritu folded a single boat together, sharing their wishes like they had as girls. The villagers began to notice, and soon the story spread. The longest journeys start with a paper boat shared by two friends. And so, children were taught not just to fold their own boats, but to share one with someone they trusted. Because the river carried wishes best when they were tied together. In the center of an ancient town stood a towering clock, its hands frozen for decades at midnight. No one dared to touch it. The elders warned that when the bell struck on its own, it did not count the town's hours. It stole them. Anyone who lingered nearby was said to lose years of their life in a single night. Two closest friends, Varun and Deepak, often passed it on their way home from school. Varun, daring and curious, always mocked the warnings. Deepak, careful but loyal, worried every time. One festival night, when fireworks lit the sky, Varun leaned close to Deepak and whispered, "Let's climb the clock tower. Tonight, when no one is watching. If the curse is real, we'll know the truth." Deepak's voice wavered. "And if we don't come back the same?" Varun smirked. "Then, at least we'll change together." At midnight, when the town slept, they crept inside the tower. Dusty stairs spiraled upward, gears creaking faintly, though no one had wound them for years. When they reached the top, the giant clock face loomed above, its frozen hands pointing straight at 12. Suddenly, the gears began to move on their own. The clock's bell struck once, echoing like thunder. The boys staggered as the air shimmered, their shadows stretching unnaturally long. A voice echoed from the gears. "One may return to the present. One must remain in the tower to pay time's debt." The great hands of the clock shifted, and the tower's glass reflected strange visions. Varun saw himself grown old, gray, and stooped. Deepak saw himself vanish entirely, as if erased. The voice boomed again. "Choose, one keeps time, one loses it." Varun clenched his fists. "Take me, spare Deepak." But Deepak shoved him back. "No, if you lose your years, I lose mine. We walk the same time, always." The gears groaned, grinding louder. The tower shook. The voice hissed. "Betrayal feeds me. Loyalty starves me. Decide before your hours end." Varun and Deepak locked hands, shouting over the roar. "We choose neither. We share the same time together." The clock hands spun wildly, faster and faster, until with a deafening crack, the glass shattered outward. The bell tolled once more, then fell silent forever. When the boys blinked, the tower was still. Its gears had stopped, its hands broken. Outside, dawn was rising. They touched their faces, their hair. Their bodies were the same. No time had been stolen. By morning, the villagers saw the tower ruined, its curse destroyed. The elders declared, the clock fed on betrayal, but two friends starved it with loyalty. From that day, the tower no longer stole time. Instead, it stood as a monument of trust. And the story of Varun and Deepak lived on. Two friends who faced the hunger of time itself and proved that loyalty can freeze even the cruelest curse. Elders told children, "Time takes all things, but true friendship cannot be stolen, not by years, not by fate." Every spring, when the winds were strongest, the children of Sundarpur gathered on the old stone bridge to fly their kites. The sky would bloom with colors, reds, blues, yellows, greens, like a patchwork quilt sewn by the wind. It was said that the kite that flew the highest would carry its maker as wished to the heavens. Among the crowd were two best friends, Arav and Mohan. Arav was quick and daring, always building the biggest kites. Mohan was careful and clever, tying knots so strong no wind could break them. Their kites were different, but they always flew side by side, just as the boys did. One year, a festival was announced, the Wish Kite Contest. The rules were simple. Whoever's kite flew the highest before sunset would win. The prize was a golden feather charm, believed to grant a single wish. Arav's eyes sparkled. Imagine, one wish, anything we want. Mohan smiled. Then we'll win it together. They built a single kite, the largest they had ever made. Arav painted it bright orange, like fire. Mohan wove the frame with steady hands and strong thread. On the day of the contest, the whole village gathered to watch. The wind roared. Kites danced and dipped, strings snapping, children shouting. Arav and Mohan's kite rose higher and higher, its fiery orange wings slicing the sky. Cheers rose from the crowd. It was winning. But suddenly, a sharp gust tangled their kite with another. The orange cloth ripped, the frame snapped, and their creation plummeted toward the river. Arav gasped. No! Without thinking, Mohan dropped his reel and grabbed Arav's hand. We'll lose if we chase it. But Arav shook his head. I'd rather lose the contest than lose our kite. They scrambled down the bank, running, slipping on mud, until they pulled the battered kite from the water. Soaked and torn, it was no longer the highest, no longer the strongest. But it was theirs. At sunset, the contest ended. Another child won the golden feather. Arav and Mohan sat on the bridge with their ruined kite between them. Arav sighed. We could have had a wish. Mohan smiled. We already do. We wished to win together. That's why I don't mind losing. As the last light of day touched the river, something strange happened. Their torn kite, lying flat on the stones, shimmered faintly. The wet cloth dried, the colors brightened, and the string coiled neatly as if woven by invisible hands. Arav and Mohan exchanged wide-eyed glances. The kite lifted softly into the air, carried by a sudden wind. It soared higher than it ever had before, glowing against the evening sky. The villagers gasped. The heavens themselves have chosen their wish. From that day, the Bridge of Kites was no longer just a place for children to play. It became a place where people brought their wishes, but more importantly, where they came to remind themselves. A wish shared in loyalty is stronger than any prize. And every spring, when orange kites streaked across the sky, the villagers remembered the two friends who chose each other over victory and found their wish carried higher than anyone else's. In a busy corner of the city stood a tiny, crooked bookshop wedged between tall, modern buildings. It looked so ordinary by day that most people passed without noticing. But everyone who had ever stepped inside whispered the same thing. Its signboard was never the same twice. Some days it read, "The last page," sometimes "Whispers and Wonders," and once, simply, "Your story." Two best friends, Ankit and Ria, discovered it one summer afternoon when a sudden rainstorm forced them off the street. The bell above the door chimed softly, and a warm, dusty scent of old paper wrapped around them like a blanket. Inside, the shelves were towering, filled with books of every size and color. Yet there was no shopkeeper, only a wooden counter, and beside it, a notebook with a sign. Write your name, and a book will find you. Ria laughed nervously. Creepy, isn't it? Ankit grinned. Or magical. Come on. They wrote their names. Immediately, two books slid off the shelves and landed on the counter. Ankit's book was bound in red leather with gold edges. Ria's was plain brown with fraying corners. Ankit opened his, and inside he saw dazzling adventures. Mountains, storms, battles, triumphs, all written as though he were the hero. His eyes sparkled. This is amazing! It's my story! Ria opened hers and frowned. The first page showed a classroom filled with children, their names scribbled in crayon. The second page showed a garden, flowers growing under careful hands. Mine's just ordinary. Ankit was too excited to notice. Come on, let's trade. I want to see yours. When he flipped through Ria's book, something strange happened. The words shifted. He saw himself, not as the hero of great adventures, but laughing under a tree with Ria, being comforted after failures, finding courage in her steady presence. He swallowed hard. Your book. It's not ordinary. It's what makes mine possible. Ria looked closer at his red book. Between battles and victories, her name appeared again and again. A friend, a listener, a hand always reaching out. Without her, the story fell apart. The bell above the shop chimed again. The book snapped shut. The counter now held only one line of writing. A story is never complete without both voices. They placed the books back on the shelf, and when they turned to leave, the shop had changed again. Its sign now read, "Shared Pages." When they stepped outside, the rain had stopped, and the bookshop was gone, as though it had never existed. But from that day on, Ankit and Ria looked at each other differently. They realized friendship wasn't about whose story seemed brighter or bigger. It was about how two stories, when woven together, made something neither could have created alone. And so, whenever life tested them, they'd remind each other of that strange little shop. Your story is mine, and mine is yours. Together, we write the book no one else can. Every summer, the railway tracks near the village grew quiet. The old passenger train that once ran daily had stopped years ago. Yet, on some evenings, villagers claimed they could hear a whistle in the distance. Soft, lonely, as if the train was still waiting for its riders. Two friends, Ayan and Kabir, grew up fascinated by the abandoned station. Ayan loved adventure, always dreaming of places beyond the horizon. Kabir was content where he was, but he never let Ayan chase a mystery without him. One twilight, while exploring the empty platform, they found a dusty ticket booth still holding 2 yellowed tickets. The words were faded, but one line remained clear. Admit to. Destination unknown. Ayan's eyes lit up. What if this is real? What if the train still runs? Kabir laughed nervously. And if it does, where would it take us? Does it matter? Ayan grinned. We'd be together. That night, as the sky darkened and crickets sang, the whistle came, louder than ever. The ground trembled, and out of the mist, a train rolled into the station. Its lamps glowed warmly, and though it looked old, it gleamed as if freshly painted. Doors opened with a hiss. The two friends exchanged a glance. Then, clutching the yellowed tickets, they climbed aboard. Inside, the train was unlike any they'd seen. The windows showed not the countryside, but scenes from their memories, childhood games, first victories, even moments of fear they had faced together. The seats seemed to hum with warmth, as if the train itself was alive. A voice echoed softly through the carriage. One may go forward, one must return. Choose. Kabir's heart sank. It's testing us. Ayan swallowed hard. Then I'll go. You stay here, safe. But Kabir shook his head. No, I'd rather stay with you in the unknown than return alone. The train jolted as if hearing their answer. The voice whispered again. Loyalty is the only fare. Suddenly the windows cleared, showing not memories, but a breathtaking view of stars. The train soared, not on tracks, but across a sky filled with constellations. The friends laughed, pressed against the glass, awed by the vastness before them. And just as suddenly, the train slowed, returning gently to the quiet, abandoned station. When they stepped out, dawn had arrived. The train was gone, the platform silent again, except for the faint sound of laughter echoing in the air. From that day, the villagers noticed something different. The station no longer felt haunted but hopeful. People said if you stood there at twilight, you might hear not just a whistle, but the laughter of two friends who proved that loyalty could turn even a train to nowhere into a journey worth taking. And so the story was told. Ayan and Kabir boarded the impossible train and came back with the truest ticket of all, their friendship unbroken. At the edge of their village, near the line of the forest, stood a giant banyan tree with roots like walls and branches like staircases. Two best friends, Sanvi and Rohan, had built a treehouse there when they were 10. It was crooked, patched with old wood and rope, but to them it was a castle, a fort, and a world of its own. Every day after school, they climbed up to share snacks, trade stories, and whisper secrets. The treehouse became their sacred place. No grown-ups, no interruptions, just them and their promises. Over time, they began a ritual. Whenever they had a secret too heavy to carry, they wrote it on a scrap of paper, folded it tight, and slipped it into a tin box they kept under the floorboards. The tree will guard it, Sanvi always said. Years passed and life grew busier. Rohan's family pushed him toward city studies, while Sanvi's family wanted her to help with the fields. Yet no matter how tired they were, they still met in the treehouse. One evening, as the sun painted the sky pink, Rohan confessed, "I'm scared, Sanvi. What if I leave for the city and forget this place? Forget us?" Sanvi smiled faintly. "Then let's make one last promise." She pulled out the tin box, stuffed with years of secrets. "We'll add one more. If we ever doubt, we come back here and open it." They both wrote the same words on slips of paper without showing each other. "I'll never forget." Then they sealed the box and tucked it away. Years rolled forward like the river. Rohan went to the city, Sanvi stayed in the village. Letters came less often, phone calls faded, but neither forgot the treehouse in their hearts. 10 years later, on a warm evening heavy with nostalgia, both of them returned, unplanned, yet at the same time. They laughed in surprise, then climbed the banyan as easily as they had as children. The treehouse creaked, older now, but still standing. Together, they pulled out the rusty tin box. Inside, the scraps of paper were yellowed with age. They read their childhood secrets and laughed until tears fell. Finally, they opened the last two papers. Both slips carried the same promise. "I'll never forget." Silence hung between them, but not the heavy silence of distance. Rather, the soft silence of two people realizing that time had tested them and failed. From then on, the treehouse became their meeting place again. Not every day, not even every month, but always when life grew heavy. And the villagers began to say, "The banyan tree doesn't just grow roots in the ground, it grows roots in friendship." The treehouse of secrets stood until the day they were old, and children climbed it too, curious about the rusted tin box they'd heard about. But the true secret was never the paper inside. It was the promise kept between two friends, carried through years, distance, and change. On the outskirts of a small desert town lay an old stone bridge. By day it looked plain, dry, and cracked. But on clear nights, when the moon was high, the villagers said the bridge shimmered faintly, as if dusted with starlight. They believed it was a bridge of wishes. Cross it with someone you trusted most, and the stars would grant you a gift. Two childhood friends, Imran and Dev, had always heard the story. Imran, a dreamer, wanted to test it. Dev, steady and practical, doubted such magic. But he never refused Imran anything. One night, after exams left them both restless, Imran grinned. "Let's cross it tonight. Who knows, maybe the stars owe us something." Dev sighed but followed. "If the bridge falls apart, it's your fault." They reached the bridge at midnight. The air was cool, the desert quiet. As they stepped onto the stones, the ground beneath them began to glow faintly. Each step lit up like a spark under their feet. Imran's eyes widened. "It's real." Halfway across, the glow deepened until the entire bridge shone like silver. The stars above seemed to lean closer, their light bending toward the two boys. A voice soft and endless whispered in the air, "One wish may be made. One heart may speak. Choose." Imran's heart raced. He wanted to wish for travel, for adventure, for stories bigger than their little town. But he looked at Dev, who carried his family's burdens, studying late into the night, rarely laughing. Dev shook his head. "Make your wish. You've wanted this forever." Imran swallowed. "No, we make it together." They clasped hands and whispered at the same time, "Let our friendship never break, no matter where life takes us." The bridge pulsed once, a wave of light rushing upward into the sky. For a moment, the stars seemed to rearrange, forming a glowing arc above their heads before scattering again. The voice whispered, "Wish received." When they stepped off the bridge, the glow faded. By morning, it looked like cracked stone again. But something lingered between them, a certainty, like an invisible thread tying them together. Years later, Imran did travel far, chasing adventures across seas and mountains. Dev stayed, building a life in their town, caring for his family and teaching children. Distance stretched, but every year, both found their way back to the bridge. And no matter how long apart, when they crossed it together, the stones still sparked faintly, as if remembering their promise. The villagers began to say, "The Bridge of Stars doesn't grant riches or fame. It grants what is truest, and the truest wish is loyalty." And when children asked, "What happens if you cross alone?" the elders would smile and reply, "The stars only shine for two hearts that walk together." In the courtyard of an old school stood a wooden bench, worn smooth by years of use. Nobody remembered who had placed it there, but every student knew its name, the friendship bench. It was where quarrels ended, secrets were whispered, and promises were made. Two best friends, Rohan and Viraj, had sat there since childhood. They ate lunch on it, studied together on it, and even carved their initials into the wood one rainy afternoon, swearing that nothing would come between them. But as they grew older, life tested them. Rohan was chosen for the school's cricket team, cheered by crowds. Viraj excelled in studies, winning medals and scholarships. Slowly, jealousy crept in, unspoken but heavy. One day, after a bitter argument about who worked harder, they walked past the bench without sitting down. For the first time, silence separated them. Weeks turned into months. They spoke little, each convinced the other had drifted away. But one day, the school announced that the bench would be removed. It had grown too old and unstable. Students were invited to write a farewell note to be placed under it before it was taken away. On the final afternoon, Rohan and Viraj both came separately, surprised to see the other standing there with a folded paper in hand. Neither spoke at first. Then Rohan laughed bitterly. "So even when we're angry, we still end up here." Viraj smiled faintly. "Because this is ours." They both placed their notes under the bench, but curiosity got the better of them. They peeked at each other's papers. Rohan had written, "I miss my friend. Winds don't matter if he's not beside me." Viraj had written, "What use are medals if my best friend isn't proud of me?" The silence between them cracked, then melted. They sat down together one last time, the bench creaking beneath them. "Looks like the bench kept our promise for us," Rohan said quietly. Viraj nodded. "Maybe it knew better than we did." The bench was removed the next morning, but something remarkable happened. Instead of throwing it away, the school placed its wooden planks into the new library wall with a small plaque. "For the friends who sat here, and for the friendships yet to come." From then on, whenever students walked past that wall, they remembered Rohan and Viraj's story, how the bench that saw their quarrels also witnessed their reunion. And the saying spread, "True friendship is like that old bench, worn, tested, and sometimes broken, but always strong enough to hold two hearts side by side." In the oldest part of the city, tucked between winding lanes, there was a marketplace that appeared only once a year, on the night of the new moon. People called it the Market of Forgotten Things. Stalls glittered with strange wares, toys no one remembered losing, letters never sent, shoes missing their pairs, even fragments of songs humming softly from jars. Two best friends, Shah and Arjun, stumbled into it one evening after chasing a stray kite through the alleys. They expected the usual bustle of the city, but instead found themselves in a bazaar lit with lanterns brighter than stars. A vendor with silver eyes beckoned them. "Welcome. Here you may find what you've forgotten, or what has forgotten you." Shah laughed nervously. "This is impossible." Arjun grinned. "Impossible just means exciting." They wandered through the stalls. Arjun found his old toy soldier, the one he had lost as a child. It still bore the scratch he had made on its helmet. Shia found a notebook filled with her handwriting, though she had no memory of ever owning it. On the last page, in her script, were words she had once thought but never written. Dawn to be afraid, to dream big. Finally, at the end of the market, they found a stall with a single object, a mirror. But instead of showing their reflections, it showed them as children, sitting under their favorite tree, swearing to always stay friends. The mirror whispered, "Friendships too can be forgotten. Do you wish to keep yours safe?" Arjun swallowed hard. "What does it mean?" The vendor appeared beside them, smiling faintly. "Every friendship is tested. Some fade, some break. But if you truly want yours to endure, you must give something precious tonight. Shah and Arjun looked at each other. Without hesitation, Shah pulled off her grandmother's bracelet. Arjun offered the pocket knife his father had gifted him. They placed them before the mirror. The glass rippled. Their childhood reflections smiled, then merged into their real ones. For a moment, the entire market shimmered as if holding its breath. Then the mirror cracked. Yet instead of breaking, it dissolved into a soft light that wrapped around them both. When they blinked, the market was gone. They stood once more in the narrow city lane, the kite tangled at their feet. The bracelet and knife were gone too. But something new lingered. A strange warmth, like an invisible thread tying their hearts together. They both knew, no matter how many years passed, no matter what life demanded, they would never forget. From then on, they told no one of the market of forgotten things. But whenever they saw each other after long absences, they'd smile knowingly, as if sharing a secret no one else could understand. And the story grew in whispers. The market appears only to those whose friendship is strong enough to survive forgetting. And if you ever find it, hold on tightly, because the most precious forgotten thing in the world is loyalty itself. On the edge of a coastal town stood an old stone tower, tall and weathered, where the winds never stopped howling. Sailors said it was built to guide ships, but villagers whispered another story, that the tower listened. If two people climbed it together and shouted their dreams into the night, the winds would carry those dreams across the world. Two best friends, Aisha and Karan, had grown up with the tower's shadow on the horizon. Aisha was fearless, always chasing horizons, while Karan was steady, more rooted, but never far from her side. One summer evening, when the sea glowed orange with the setting sun, Aisha tugged Karan's arm. "Let's climb it. If the winds are magic, I want them to know my dream." Karan chuckled nervously. "And if it's just a pile of stones? Then we'll just have the best view in town," she grinned. The climb was steep, the staircase narrow and crumbling, but together they reached the top. The wind roared so loud it felt alive, tugging at their clothes and hair. The sea stretched endlessly before them, glittering under the rising moon. "Go on," Karan said, cupping his hands. "What's your dream?" Aisha closed her eyes and shouted into the gale, "I want to see the whole world." Her voice was snatched up and spun away into the night. Karan hesitated. His dream was quieter, not made for shouting, but Aisha nudged him. "Don't be shy. The winds are listening." So Karan called, "I want to never lose the people I care about." For a moment, the wind seemed to soften, swirling gently around them instead of howling. It carried their voices together, twining them like two threads of the same fabric. Years passed. Aisha did leave, traveling to distant lands, writing letters from mountains and cities Karan had only read about. Karan stayed, caring for his family, anchoring their little town. Sometimes months went by without a word, but when storms came, both remembered the tower and the night their dreams had been tied together. Decades later, when their hair was silver, Aisha returned. Together, they climbed the tower again, slower this time, but still side by side. The winds howled just as fiercely, as if greeting old friends. Aisha laughed. "Well, I saw the world." Karan smiled softly. "And I never lost you." They didn't need to shout their dreams this time. The winds already knew. From then on, children were told the tale of Aisha and Karan, how two friends shouted their wishes into the Tower of Winds, and how the winds carried them safely through life, no matter how far apart they traveled. And villagers said whenever the wind roared loudest on the cliffs, "Listen closely. You can still hear two voices carried together across the world." In the oldest quarter of the city, hidden behind ivy and shadows, there stood a library with no signboard. It was said to open only at dusk, and only for those who entered together. The shelves were unlike any other, lined not with ordinary books, but with glowing hourglasses. Each hourglass held shimmering sand, and each one represented a moment someone had wasted, forgotten, or wished to relive. Two best friends, Aditi and Kunal, discovered the place one evening after taking a wrong turn on their way home from college. The heavy wooden door creaked open by itself, and inside, the air smelled of dust and something strangely sweet, like old memories. They wandered among the shelves in awe, Some hourglasses flickered faintly, others glowed bright as stars. Each was labeled with a single word: laughter, regret, courage, silence. At the far end of the hall, they found a desk with 2 hourglasses waiting, each with their names etched in gold. A note lay beside them. Friends may borrow 1 hour together. Use it wisely. Aditi gasped. Do you think it means we can relive a moment? Kunal studied the sand swirling slowly inside. Or maybe steal one back. But which hour would we even choose? They sat in silence, thinking of countless memories, failed exams, embarrassing mistakes, missed chances. Finally, Aditi whispered, "Let's not waste it on regret. Let's choose joy." Kunal smiled. Then the best one we've shared so far. Together, they turned the hourglass. The sand inside glowed and spilled upward, and suddenly they were no longer in the library. They were 12 again, standing on the rooftop where they used to fly kites. The sky was wide and blue, their laughter echoing, their worries so small they barely existed. For a whole hour, they lived that day again, shouting at the wind, racing each other with strings in hand, and collapsing in laughter when both their kites tangled and tore. It was just as vivid as the first time, but somehow sweeter, because now they knew how precious it had been. When the hour ended, they were back in the library, the hourglass empty. The note on the desk had changed. Shared joy never fades. You carry it forever. They left the library hand in hand, and when they looked back, the building was gone. But the feeling lingered, that even if life pulled them apart, they had an hour of pure joy that no one could take away. Years later, whenever life grew heavy, they would sit together and say, "Remember the hour we borrowed?" And the memory would glow brighter than any sorrow. The story spread in whispers. Some friendships find the library of lost hours, but only those who choose joy over regret carry its magic with them always. At the edge of a quiet village stood a stone well, so old that moss covered its sides and no one remembered who had built it. The villagers never used it for water. They said it belonged to the night. According to legend, if 2 friends looked into it together under the stars, the well would show them their future. 2 best friends, Naina and Raghav, grew up hearing this story. Naina was full of questions and wonder, always chasing mysteries. Raghav was steady and grounded, the one who kept her from tumbling headfirst into trouble. One evening, after their last day of school, Naina said, "Before we step into the grown-up world, let's ask the well what lies ahead." Raghav frowned. "And if we don't like what we see?" Naina grinned. "Then we'll prove it wrong together." They sneaked out at midnight and sat by the well. The sky was deep and starry, the air quiet except for the crickets. When they leaned over the edge and peered into the water, their reflections blurred. Slowly, shapes formed. They saw Naina on a faraway stage, speaking to crowds, her eyes full of fire. They saw Raghav in a small clinic, tending to villagers with patience and kindness. They were in different places, living different lives. Naina's smile faltered. "We're apart." Raghav's jaw tightened. Maybe it's a warning. But then the water rippled again. At the end of both visions, they saw themselves. Older, hair streaked with gray, sitting side by side under the same banyan tree where they always met as children. Laughing, sharing food, as if no time had passed. Naina let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "So no matter where we go, we'll find our way back." Raghav smiled softly. "That's the part I'll believe in." They dropped 2 pebbles into the water, watching the ripples merge. Then they stood hand in hand and made a promise. Different roads, same destination, always. Years went by. Naina did become a fiery speaker, traveling far and wide. Raghav did open his clinic, caring for the people of their village. They were apart for long stretches, but every time life allowed, they returned to the banyan tree, keeping the promise the well had shown them. The villagers began to tell the tale of the Well of Dreams, how it revealed not just futures, but the strength of bonds that distance could never break. Parents told their children, "Don't fear different paths. True friends meet at the same well in the end." And when people passed the old mossy stones, they often swore the water shimmered faintly, as if still carrying the laughter of two friends who had seen the future and chosen to walk toward it together.